ॐ विश्वन्दर्पणदृश्यमाननगरी तुल्यन्निजान्तर्गतम् पश्यन्नात्मनि मायया बहिर्वोद्भूतं यथा निद्रया यः साक्षात् कुरुते प्रबोधसमये स्वात्मानमेवाद्वयम् तस्मै श्रीगुरुमूर्तये नम इदं श्रीदक्षिणामूर्तये नारायणं पद्मभुवं वसिष्ठं शक्तिं च तत्पुत्रपराशरं च व्यासं शुकं गौडपदं महान्तं गोविन्दयोगीन्द्रमथास्य शिष्यं श्रीशङ्कराचार्यमथास्य पद्मपादं च हस्तामलकं च शिष्यं तन्तोटकं वार्तिककारमन्यान् अस्मद्गुरून् सन्ततमानतोऽस्मि श्रुतिस्मृतिपुराणानाम् आलयं करुणालयं नमामि भगवत्पादं शङ्करं लोकशङ्करं शङ्करं शङ्कराचार्यं केशवं बादरायणं सूत्रभाष्यकृतौ वन्दे भगवन्तौ पुनः पुनः परब्रह्मनिष्ठं स्वतो धर्मनिष्ठं अहिंसैकनिष्ठं स्वशिष्यैः सुजुष्टं यतीनां वरिष्ठं गुरूणां गरिष्ठं दयानन्दरूपं मदाचार्यमीडे नमः श्रीपरमार्थाय संसाराध्यासनाशिने श्रोत्रियब्रह्मनिष्ठाय तस्मै ब्रह्मविदे नमः सदाशिवसमारम्भां शङ्कराचार्यमध्यमाम् अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्तां वन्दे गुरुपरम्पराम् ॐ तपोभिः क्षीणपापानां शान्तानां वीतरागिणां मुमुक्षूणामपेक्ष्योऽयम् आत्मबोधो विधीयते. I welcome you all to the fifth class of the Atma Bodha series. We will read verse number 3 and 4 that we had done in the last class, and then we'll proceed to a summary of those verses. And I'll just read this and you can read it along with me. Avirodhitaya karma na vidyam vinivartayet vidya vidyam nihantyeva तेजस्तिमिरसङ्घवत् परिच्छिन्न इवा ज्ञानात् तन्नाशे सति केवलः स्वयं प्रकाशते ह्यात्मा मेघापायेंशुमानिव. So in these verses, Bhagavad is informing us about the fundamentals of Vedanta. In the vision of Vedanta, you are already Purnaha. I am already Purnaha. But the problem is that I don't know that I am Purnaha. I am limitless, full and complete. There is self-ignorance. And therefore, there is a conclusion that I am deficient, I am wanting, I am inadequate, I am apurna. And since I look upon myself as being apurnaha, now I am trying to become purnaha through various pursuits in the world. But none of them can make me purnaha. Therefore, as we said, the human being is stuck between a rock and a hard place. The rock is his own conclusion that I am Purna. The hard place is the world where he can never seem to become Purna. But then he cannot also drop this urge to seek Purnatva. And therefore, there is this never-ending struggle. So Bhagavad is telling us that the solution to this is knowledge and knowledge alone. Why? Because what I am seeking to accomplish is already accomplished. The Purnatvam that I am seeking to accomplish is already accomplished because I am really Purna. Praptasya praptihi. When what I seek to accomplish is already accomplished, but I don't know that it is already accomplished, then the only solution is to know that it's already accomplished. For knowledge alone is the solution. Therefore, Bhagavad says, Karma avidyam na vinivartayet. Karma cannot remove ignorance. Karma cannot destroy ignorance. Why? Because avirodhitaya, karma itself is not opposed to ignorance. Why is karma not opposed to ignorance? Because karma is a product of ignorance. How is karma a product of ignorance? We take our rope snake example. And I don't know it is a rope. And instead of the rope, now I see a snake. And then I start to scream, I start to beat it. I start to gather a crowd around it. All of these karmas originate from the vision of the snake. The vision of the snake is not the reality. It's a falsehood. So all of these karmas originate from a falsehood that I've taken to be real. Therefore, these karma only preserve, reinforce, amplify, and magnify the ignorance. They are not capable of destroying the ignorance because they are born out of the vision of the snake, which is born out of ignorance. So, all of these types of karma are descendants of ignorance. They share the same DNA as ignorance. Then, what is it that removes ignorance? It is knowledge and knowledge alone. Vidya eva avidyam nihanti. Knowledge alone removes ignorance. This is the law. Like we saw, some goals are multi-pathed goals. There are multiple ways to accomplish a given goal. But then some goals are single-pathed goals. Eka sadhana sadhyam. So when a goal is a single-pathed goal, there is only one way to accomplish it. And Bhagavad gives another example, Tejas Timira Sanghavat. If there is darkness, there is only one way of removing that darkness, bringing in light. No matter whatever else you do, it's not going to work. Similarly, ignorance can be removed by knowledge and knowledge alone. So then we come to the fourth verse. Parichinnaha iva ajnanat. So Atma Parichinnaha, this is my conclusion that I am Parichinnaha means I am Apurna. I am limited, deficient, wanting, inadequate. So if this was really my nature, like fire is hot, sugar is sweet, heat is the nature of fire, sweetness is the nature of sugar. If something is a nature, it can never be altered. That's why it's called the nature of something. So if Apurnatvam were my nature, then it would be impossible for me to become Purna. It would be impossible for me to change my nature. Thankfully, Apurnatvam is not my nature. Parichinnaha iva, Bhagavad says, iva. Iva meaning as though. It's an appearance. The Apurnatvam is thankfully only an appearance. It's a notion that I have. It is not the reality about myself. Why does this idea of Apurnatvam arise? Ajnanat. Because of Ajnana. And then Tannashe, when the ignorance is destroyed. Tannashe. And how is the ignorance destroyed? By bringing in knowledge. Tannashe sati. Tannashe sati kevalaha. At that point, I come to see that the Atma is not parichinnaha at all. In fact, it is exactly the opposite of what I had taken it to be. Kevalaha. Kevalaha means that the Atma alone is. The Atma alone really exists. Atma meaning I. So that means that I alone am here. I alone really exist here. I belong to a higher order of reality. Everything else is in a lower order of reality. There is no second thing at all that can limit me. Kevala. And therefore, I can never be affected by anything at all because everything is in a lower order of reality. What is in a lower order of reality cannot touch that which is in a higher order of reality. So, tanna she sati kevalaha. Then swayam prakashate hyatma. Like we said, that I know that I am. I don't need any Vedanta to know that I am there. I doubtlessly know that I am there. Even in the darkest of rooms, if somebody asks me, are you there? I say with total confidence, yes, I am there. So before I can know anything else, I know that I am there. I know that I am, and then I know everything else. So in order to know myself, I don't need any process of knowledge to know myself. I don't need a vritti to know myself. That I exist to know this. Of course, there's a veil of ignorance that is covering the Atma. So to remove the veil of ignorance, I need a vritti. So we say that this I am is self-evident, swayam prakasha. Even in the state of ignorance, I know that I am. But the problem is that due to this ignorance, I have superimposed all kinds of ideas upon this I am, that I am deficient, I am wanting, I am inadequate. All of these superimpositions I have done upon the I am. So when the knowledge arises, the knowledge destroys the ignorance, tanna she sati. The ignorance gets destroyed. And Bhagavad Pada is saying that is enough. It is enough for the ignorance to get destroyed. There is, after the ignorance has been destroyed, there is nothing special I need to do in order to know myself. Because I am self-evident. I am self-evident even in the state of ignorance. And once the ignorance is destroyed, I continue to be self-evident. Except that all of the ignorance and its effects, the superimpositions are all gone. I continue to know that I am, but I refuse to superimpose anything upon this I am, because now I have the knowledge of what this I am is, that it is Purna. The Bhagavad Pada gives the example of Megha Payen Shumaniva. The clouds are covering the sun. When the clouds cover the sun, then somebody says that the sun is not bright today, the sun appears dull today. Sun is dull today. But the sun is Swayam Prakashaha, it is self-luminous, it is just shining the way it always does. So the fact that it has the clouds have covered it have not altered have not really altered the shining of the sun in any way. Now, when the wind comes, the wind removes the clouds. When the clouds get removed, the sun just continues to shine the way it always did. There's absolutely no difference. So the wind coming and removing the clouds did not add anything to the shining of the sun. So similarly here, the Ajnanam is compared to this cloud. Atma is like the sun. And the Aham Brahmasmi Vritti that comes in and removes the Ajnanam is like the wind. So when the wind of Aham Brahmasmi comes in and removes this cloud of Ajnanam, then the sun like Atma just continues to shine the way it always did. Swayam Prakashate Hyatma. If we look at the essence of these verses, Bhagavad is telling us that moksha is eka sadhana sadhyam. Moksha is accomplished only through jnanam and jnanam alone. And therefore, a mumukshuhu, a seeker of moksha, must become a jigyasu, a seeker of knowledge. So with this, we'll go to the next verse. Verse number 5. And Sharadaji is not here today. So Balaji, can you read after me?
Yeah, I can.
Verse number 5. Ajnana-kalusham jivam
Ajnana-kalusham jivam
jnanabhyasat vinirmalam
jnanabhyasad vinirmalam
kritva jnanam swayam nashyet
krutva jnanam swayam nashet
jalam katakarenuvat.
jalam katakarenuvat.
So in the previous verse, we said that this Aham Brahmasmi Vritti has to come like the wind and remove this cloud of Ajnanam. So now the question is, how does this Aham Brahmasmi Vritti come? And then what happens to this Aham Brahmasmi Vritti after it has removed the cloud of Ajnanam? So Bhagavad says, Ajnana Kalusham Jivam. Ajnana Kalusham. Ajnanam eva kalusham malam yasya saha tam jivam. So Ajnanam eva kalusham malam. So Ajnanam is the impurity. Ajnanam is the impurity. And the impurity belongs to whom? Jivaha. So Jivaha has got the impurity called Ajnanam. Ajnana Kalusham Jivam. Jiva who has this impurity called Ajnanam. It refers to the Jiva. Ajnana Kalusham is an adjective to Jiva. Vishesha. So now let's take Ajnanam. If Ajnanam is dormant, then there is really no problem. That's why it said that ignorance is bliss. And if ignorance is quiet, there is no problem. For example, I have rope ignorance, let us say. And in total darkness, I walk beside the rope. I do have ignorance, rope ignorance, there's no doubt. But rope ignorance doesn't cause a problem in this situation. And therefore, I blissfully walk by the rope. The problem happens when ajnanam causes adhyasa or superimposition. Similarly, I have Atma Ajnanam. There's a veil of ignorance that covers the Atma. If the ignorance is dormant, like in deep sleep, there is no problem. But then, sooner or later, the Ajnanam cannot keep quiet. It has to produce its effect. Therefore, in Jagrada Avastha, there's all of this adhyasa that happens, that I am a mortal. I am a puny creature in this immense world. I am affected by this world. I am insecure. I am vulnerable. I have anxiety, worry. I am suffering. All of these superimpositions happen upon the Ajna. on the I am. And as the body and the mind, I am limited. My family, my possessions, my profession, they all have inadequacies. Therefore, I am inadequate. As a karta, bhokta, pramata, I am limited. I am deficient, wanting, inadequate, apurnaha. All of these kinds of superimpositions are a result of ajnanam. Therefore, ajnana kalusham here. Ajnanam is the impurity. But Bhagavad is not just referring to Ajnanam, but the effects of Ajnanam, like all of this Adhyasa, etc. So we can say Ajnana Adhyasa Kalusham. Impurity, Jiva who has the impurity of the Ajnanam, Adhyasa, and all of this Kamaha that arises out of this Adhyasa that I have to become Purnaha, and all of this karma, the misdirected karmas that follow in order to become Purnaha. So Jiva has got all of these impurities. Ajnana kalusham Jiva. So how is this Ajnanam removed? Jnanabhyasat. Jnanabhyasat. What is Jnanabhyasa? Jnanabhyasa refers to all the sadhanas that give rise to Jnana. So we can take it as being composed of three parts. Jnana yogyata praptihi, jnana praptihi, and jnana nishtha praptihi. Jnana yogyata praptihi refers to gaining the a prepared mind for knowledge. Jnana yogyata praptihi. Jnana praptihi refers to gaining the knowledge itself. And jnana nishtha praptihi refers to gaining a firm abidance in this knowledge. This is what jnana abhyasa is. What are the means to gain jnana yogyata? The preparation of the mind, we have already seen it's karma yoga and upasana. Karma yoga gives chitta shuddhi, upasana yoga gives chitta ekagrata. One pointedness of the mind, integration of the mind. So karma yoga gives purity of the mind, upasana yoga gives the integration of the mind. This is jnana yogyata. And how does the jnanam arise? Through shravanam and mananam. Through jnanam, the knowledge arises. Through mananam, the conviction in the knowledge arises. And then, how does this jnana nishtha come about? Through nididhyasanam. Through nididhyasanam, I assimilate, internalize the knowledge, and then a transformation of the personality comes about as a result of the assimilation and internalization of the knowledge. So gaining the purity through karma yoga, gaining the integrity of the mind through upasana yoga, gaining the knowledge through shravanam, gaining the conviction through mananam, and gaining the internalization of the knowledge that leads to the transformation through nididhyasanam. This is jnana bhyasaha. So ajnana kalusham jivam jnana bhyasat. Through jnana bhyasat, jnanam arises, the knowledge arises. What does this knowledge do? Jnanam ajnana kalusham jivam vinirmalam kritva. Vinirmalam kritva. So this jnanam that arises from jnana bhyasaha, it purifies this jiva of all these impurities that we talked about. The ignorance has to go primarily. And when the ignorance goes, all of its effects also go. Now, how does the ignorance go? We said that we need the destroyer of ignorance. The destroyer of ignorance is knowledge. As we said, Atma is not opposed to the ignorance. Atma is not opposed to Atma Ajnanam. Exactly like the rope is not opposed to rope ignorance. If the rope was opposed to rope ignorance, I should never see a snake. The moment the snake is superimposed on the rope should destroy the snake because the destroyer of the snake is right there. So the rope is not opposed to the snake. The rope is not opposed to the rope ignorance. This is a very important point. What is opposed to the rope ignorance? What is opposed to the snake then? It is rope knowledge, rope jnanam. Rajju jnanam alone is opposed to Rajju ajnanam and sarpadhyasaha. So similarly, Atma is not opposed to ignorance. Why? Ignorance is in a lower order of reality as compared to the Atma. A thing in a higher order of reality cannot destroy something that is in a lower order of reality if two things have a destroyer-destroyed relationship. Then the two things should be in the same order of reality. And therefore, we need something in the same order of reality as the Ajnanam that can arise and destroy the Ajnanam. What is that entity that destroys the Ajnanam and is in the same order of reality? This Jnanam arises in the form of this Aham Brahmasmi Vrittihi and destroys the Ajnanam. This Jnanam in the form of Aham Brahmasmi Vrittihi is also in the lower order of reality only. And that is exactly why it is able to destroy the ignorance. In one sweep, as the Aham Brahmasmi Vritti arises, the ignorance goes, and all of the superimposition, this Apurnatvam Adhyasa, and this Kamaha, in order to become Purnaha, and all of these karmas that originate from the idea of becoming Purnaha, all of them are swept aside. So Jnanam Ajnana Kalusham Jivam Vinirmalam Kritva. This Jnanam, having purified this jiva of all of these impurities like this Ajnanam, Adhyasa, etc. Now what happens to this Jnana Vrittihi? Bhagavad says that Jnanam Swayam Nashyet. That is, Aham Brahmasmi Vrittihi also goes away. Vritti has done its job. It has destroyed the Ajnana. Having done its job, it has got nothing more to do by hanging around there. There's nothing, no task left in order to do. This Aham Brahmasmi Vritti also goes away. So we may get a doubt here that as soon as the Vritti goes away, won't this Ajnanam come back? So we say that we know so many things. For example, I know my phone number. I know my address. So I don't constantly keep this around in my mind in a form of a vritti at all times that my number is so, my address is so. I don't have to keep this circling and in my mind all the time. If I have to keep every piece of knowledge that I know in the form of a vritti in my mind all the time, the mind will not be available for anything else. Because the mind can only entertain one vritti at a time. So, for example, I know that I am male, so I don't have to keep constantly remembering this fact in my mind. I know beyond doubt that I am male. Similarly, a jnani, once he has determined beyond doubt that Aham Brahmasmi, the vritti has come, done its job, and gone away, he doesn't have to keep this vritti in the mind all the time. So, jnani, for example, picks up a pot in order to drink water. When he picks up the pot vritti takes place in his mind. So when this pot vritti takes place in his mind, the mind cannot entertain any other vritti at that time. So the jnani had to remember Aham Brahmasmi vritti, keep this vritti in the mind at all times. Then the jnani would become incapable of doing any vyavahara. So we say that this Aham Brahmasmi vritti comes and goes away. Having done its job, it has removed the ajnana. The jnani can then engage in vyavahara. There is no problem there. The ajnanam is gone. So we say this is the difference between a jnani and an upasaka. An upasaka, a meditator, who is doing upasana as a sadhana for purification or chitta ekagrata. He still doesn't have the jnanam. He's doing an upasana for the sake of jnana. So an upasaka has to keep the vritti in the mind as long as he is doing the upasana. If the upasana vritti goes away, the upasana is broken. The meditation gets broken. And there are special upasanas like the Nirguna Brahma Upasana. In Nirguna Brahma Upasana, the upasaka is meditating on the fact that I am Brahman. He is meditating on Aham Brahmasmi, but he still doesn't have the jnanam that Aham Brahmasmi. So when he is meditating on Aham Brahmasmi without having the jnanam that I am Brahman, at that point he is imagining I am Brahman. He doesn't know I am Brahman. So when the Upasaka is doing Nirguna Brahma Upasana is the imagination that I am Brahman. When he is doing the imagination that I am Brahman, then if the vritti gets broken, then his Upasana is broken. But a jnani knows that I am Brahman. That is the difference. So once he has ascertained beyond doubt that I am Brahman, he doesn't have to keep this vritti around. See, if we talk to some of these teenagers, or these so-called Gen Z generation, they call themselves Gen Z, I think. And the generation beyond that, before that was called, I forget, I don't know, Alpha, or they have some names for this. And then before
Maybe
that were,
millennials, I think.
yes, millennials. And most of us, they just dismiss us as being boomers or something like that. So if we talk to these Gen Z people, then they use a term saying that now I'm not able to unsee it. I'm not able to unsee something that I have seen. So I had never heard, I studied English for so many years. During all of our study of English, I never came across this term saying unsee. But then this is very commonly used. And I think this is also now in the dictionary. So once you have seen something, you're not able to unsee it. Now you've seen it. Then you cannot get it out of your mind even if you want to. So Jnani's position is something like that. He has seen the true nature of Atma. Now he cannot unsee it even if he wants to. So he doesn't have to keep this vritti in his mind all the time. Therefore, jnanam swayam nashye. And there are a few examples of this. And Bhagavad himself gives an example, but before that, we will see two more examples. Let's say that I'm in a dream. And in a dream, there is a lot of pain that I'm going through in some forest. And I'm really scared. I'm running here and there. And suddenly, I'm running towards a particular place thinking it's safe. And suddenly, from the rock, suddenly a lion jumps and it roars. And hearing that roar, I wake up. Now, what woke me up from the dream? It was a lion and its roar. But once I woken up from the dream, of course, the dream went away. But the lion that woke me up also went away. Similarly, the jnanam that wakes me up from this dream of samsara, that jnanam also goes away. Another example is, let us say that there is a thorn that has entered my foot. Now I use a thorn to remove this thorn. I use another thorn to remove this thorn. And once this thorn that has entered my foot is removed, this other thorn also, I throw it away. I don't need it. So similarly, jnanam swayam nashyate. And Bhagavad here gives another example. Jalam kataka renuvat. Jalam kataka renuvat. Kataka refers to a nut. And renuhu means the powder. So the nut called kataka is powdered. And then there's this powder. Now this powder has got a special property. That if you take impure water, then in the impure water there are some impurities floating around in the water. So if you add this powder to the water, then it forms some kind of a film. Powder forms some kind of a thin film, and then it gradually sinks down. And when it sinks down, it takes all the impurities with it. And then if you see whether the powder is there, the powder also, it settles down. It doesn't hang around in the water anymore. So exactly like this jnanam, also like this kataka renuhu, that is added to impure water. So first there is Atma. Atma has got the impurity of ajnanam and adhyasa and all that. So now jnanam comes in, the jnana vritti comes in, aham brahmasmi vritti comes in. And then this aham brahmasmi vritti removes this ajnanam and all of its effects. And finally the ajnanam, the jnana vritti also goes away. Therefore, initially, Atma is there with Ajnanam. Then, for momentarily, Atma is there both with the Jnanam and Ajnanam, and the Jnanam is working. You can say that both are there. But finally, then Jnanam removes the Ajnanam, and the Jnana Vritti also goes away. Brahmavid Brahmaiva Bhavati. The knower of Brahman becomes Brahman. Brahmajnani doesn't continue to say that I am a Brahmajnani. The jnana vritti goes away, and what remains is Brahman alone, with neither the ajnanam nor the jnana. Therefore, the Brahmajnani identifies himself with Brahman, saying, I am Brahman. He doesn't as much say that I am a Brahmajnani. So, this verse talks about how the ajnanam goes away with the aham brahmasmi vritti coming in, and then what happens to the aham brahmasmi vritti after it has done its job, that too goes away. So now we come to the next verse, verse number 6. Sansara swapna tulyo hi
संसारः स्वप्नतुल्यो हि
ragadveshadi sankulah
रागद्वेषादिसङ्कुलः
swakale satyavat bhati
सकाले सत्यवद्भाति
प्रबोधे सत्य सद्भवेत्.
प्रबोधे सत्यसद्भवेत्।
So here, Bhagavad is using a few terms that we need to understand. Swakale satyavat bhati prabodhe sati asat bhavet. Swakale satyavat bhati prabodhe sati asad bhavet. So Bhagavad is using the terms satya and asat. So before we get into the specifics of this verse, we will talk about the background that gives us the definition of these words. These are reality words. Satya, Sat, Asat, and Mithya. These are reality words. They talk about the status of existence of objects in the world. They are not themselves objects in the world. So let us take our favorite example of the golden bangle. When we take the golden bangle, we say the bangle exists. But if we inquire into it, then we come to the surprising discovery that there is no substance called bangle at all. The substance is really gold. The essence of the bangle is really gold. So we say the saraha of the bangle is gold. If we touch the bangle, we are really touching the gold alone. If we weigh the bangle, we are weighing the gold alone. So gold is the saraha. And gold is also nityaha in the world of gold ornaments. Gold is nityaha, meaning before this bangle came into existence, the gold alone was. Even now, when the bangle is, the gold is still there. The gold hasn't gone when the bangle came into being. If that was the case, people would be afraid to make gold ornaments if the gold were to go away. But people confidently make these gold ornaments because they know nothing is going to happen to the gold. And even after this bangle goes and something else like this necklace comes in, the gold still remains. The bangle goes, the necklace has come, nothing has happened to the gold. So gold is nityaha. Gold is saraha, the substance. Gold is nityaha, meaning gold. The existence of gold is always there in all the three periods of time, past, present, and future. And gold is satyaha, meaning the existence really belongs to the gold alone. The bangle only appears to exist. It is the gold that really exists. So here, Vedanta says that if in the language you say bangle exists and you also say gold exists, Vedanta says that, that the language doesn't convey the difference in the order of existence. There is an entirely different type of existence we are talking about in the two cases. The language is not enough to convey this, the normal language. And that's why Vedanta says I need two terms to convey, to communicate this situation. That's why Vedanta introduces a term called Satyam and Mithyā. The Satyam refers to Swatantra Satta. Something that has Swatantra Satta is called Satyam, meaning that which has independent existence. In this situation, gold has got independent existence. Therefore, it is called Satyam. Whereas the existence of the bangle depends upon the gold. The bangle doesn't have any independent existence of its own. If it did, the bangle should be able to exist separately from the gold. The bangle cannot be torn apart from the gold at all. In fact, the bangle is just a name for a particular form of the gold, nothing more. Bangle is just a name given to a form of the gold. So we say that this bangle is mithya. It is just nama rupa only. It has no existence of its own. It has paratantra satta. It is dependently existing. So in our language, we use terms like golden bangle, golden chain, golden necklace, golden ring, etc. And here the language has done some injustice because the substance is really the gold. The noun really should be the gold, but we have converted the gold into an adjective by saying golden. And the bangle, which is purely namarupa, which should really be an attribute of the gold, has been converted into a noun in our language. We are saying golden bangle, golden chain, golden ring. But Vedanta says it would be more appropriate to call it bangly gold, chainy gold, ringy gold. That more accurately conveys the fact that there is only gold and all of these are namarupas and nothing more. They are just names for different forms of gold. So this distinction between Satyam and Mithya is very important. So now the question is, we come to this world. What is the Satyam here? What is it that really exists here? The scientists have also are trying to figure out what is it that really exists here. They said molecules exist. Molecules are the most fundamental things that exist. And everything else is just molecules, different forms and configurations of molecules. And they broke down the molecules. And they said molecules don't exist by themselves, they are just made up of atoms. Atoms are the most fundamental entities. Then they broke the atoms into subatomic particles, protons, neutrons, electrons. They said protons, neutrons, and electrons are what exist. The atoms are just different configurations of it. Then they continued to break the protons, neutrons, electrons also into subatomic particles. There are probably 35 or 40 of them now. They're continuing to break it up, break it up. Science doesn't have any conclusion on what really exists. And then there are all these particles and waves, duality that they have run into. They are not even able to categorize what is it that they're seeing at those levels. So science hasn't really identified what exists. And Vedanta says that science will also never be able to identify what exists. What Vedanta says, if we ask Vedanta what exists, Vedanta says it is this attributeless Brahman alone that exists. Brahman alone is Satyam. What really exists here, what has Swatantra Satta, if we ask, what exists independently, it is Brahman and Brahman alone. So before this entire world came into existence, Brahman alone was. Even now, when this world, we are saying the world exists, Brahman alone really exists independently. The world borrows existence from Brahman. And even after this world goes away, Brahman alone will continue to exist. Exactly like before the bangle came into being, gold alone was. Even when the bangle is, gold alone is. And even after the bangle goes, gold alone continues to be. So Brahma Satyam. And what about this world? Say, this world is Mithya. World is only Namarupa. So Brahman is said to be Satyam because its existence cannot be dismissed in the three periods of time. Trikala Badhyam Yat Tat Sat. Trikala Abadhyam Yat Tat Sat. That whose existence cannot be dismissed in the past, present, or future. That is Brahman. But this world is not Trikala Badhyam Yat Tat Sat. This world cannot be called Sat. Why? Because its existence is dismissed upon knowing Brahman. Sat ched na badhyeta. If this world was Sat, then its existence should be undismissible. But the existence of the world is dismissed upon knowing Brahman, exactly like the existence of the bangle is dismissed upon knowing that the existence really belongs to gold. Then is this world non-existent? Is this world asat? This is where we introduce the third term called asat. We talked about sat and mithya. Sat is that which is independently existent. Mithya is that which is dependently existent. But asat is that which is utterly non-existent. Like the horns of a hare, Shashashringa. Or like this son of a barren woman, Vandhya Putra. They are utterly non-existent. We can never experience them at all. But this world is experienced. So if this world was asat, then it should never have been experienced. Asat chet na pratiyeta. If this world was asat, it should never have been experienced. But the world is experienced. So it is not asat. The existence of the world is dismissed, so it is not sat also. That is why we need this in-between classification. Because we cannot classify it as sat or asat, we come up with this term called mithya. Sat asat bhyam vilakshanaha mithya. That which cannot be classified as sat, that which cannot be classified as asat. You cannot say the world is, you cannot say the world is not also. That's why it's called anirvachaniyam. It cannot be classified as it is, and it cannot be classified as it is not. And this is mithya. So mithya is this new category because it is uncategorizable as sat or asat. And the understanding of mithya is one of the pillars of Vedanta. Understanding that this Jagat is Mithya is one of the pillars of Vedanta. Brahma Satyam, Jagan Mithya, Jivo Brahmaiva Na Paraha. Brahma Satyam is the first pillar of Vedanta, that Brahman alone is Satyam. Jagan Mithya is the second pillar of the Vedantic teaching, that the entire world is Mithya. And Jivo Brahmaiva Na Paraha, that I am not different from Brahman, I am identical with Brahman. This is the third pillar of Vedanta. So without mithya, that without a thorough understanding of the term mithya, it is impossible to understand Vedanta. So now we come to two principles of Satyam and Mithya that we will apply in this verse. The first principle is that any Mithya Vastu must have a Satya Adhishthanam. Any Mithya Vastu must have a Satyam Adhishthanam. Meaning that Mithya cannot exist without Satya. Satyam can exist without Mithya, but Mithya cannot exist without Satya. This is the first Satyam Mithya principle. Then the second Satyam Mithya principle is that unless the Satyam Adhishthanam is known, the Mithya is mistaken to be the Satyam. So if I have ignorance of the adhishthanam, if I have ignorance of what is satyam, then the mithya is, some mithya is mistaken to be the satyam. That's why people say the angle exists. Because they have not truly understood that what really exists is the gold, that gold alone is satyam. We don't understand it, we will take bangle, the bangle to be satyam. So if there is ignorance of the satyam, then ignorance has got two powers. We say that ajnanam has got two kinds of shakti. One is the avarana shakti. Avarana shakti means a concealing power. And vikshepa shakti. Vikshepa shakti means a projecting power. So ignorance has got these twofold powers, avarana shakti and vikshepa shakti. And what does ignorance do? Firstly, it conceals the satyam. It conceals what is satyam. That is the first thing. And then, having concealed what is satyam, it projects something that is not really there. It projects something. And then, thirdly, it conceals the falsity of the projected thing also and transfers the reality that should really belong to the Satyam. It transfers the reality that should belong to the Satyam to this false projection. So let's take the example of the rope. So I have rope ignorance. Now, rope ignorance has got two powers, Avarana Shakti and Vikshepa Shakti. So firstly, the Avarana Shakti of the Rajju Ajnanam, the rope ignorance, it conceals the rope. So the rope is covered by a veil of Ajnana. So I don't see the rope. And then what do I do? Because of the Ajnanam projects the false snake. So at this point also, if I had known the false snake as a false snake, then I would not have problems. But the Ajnanam now, the Avarana Shakti of the Ajnanam comes back, it conceals the falseness of the snake also. And the reality of the rope is transferred to the snake. I say the snake is. The snake is. I am saying the snake exists. The snake becomes the Satyam. So when the Satyam is not known, then the Mithya becomes Satyam. So unless the rope is known as Satyam, the Mithya snake is mistaken to be Satyam. Unless the sand is known as Satyam, the mirage water, the false mirage water, the Mithya mirage water is mistaken to be Satyam. Unless the waker is known as Satyam, the Mithya dream is mistaken to be Satyam. That is exactly the example that Bhagavad is giving here. Sansara swapna tulyo hi ragat veshadi sankulaha. Swapna tulyaha. So Bhagavad is comparing something to Swapna. Swapna tulyaha. What is Bhagavad comparing to the dream? He says this samsara. So samsara samsriyate asmin. Samsriyate asmin iti samsara. So here, this immense universe in which I see myself as this puny apurnaha creature wandering about in this immense universe. This immense universe is the samsara in which this puny apurnaha creature wanders about. So there is this duality of the subject and the object, that I am apurnaha in this immense universe that is separate from me. There is this duality. The subject is deficient, wanting, inadequate, apurnaha, struggling in this world, under control of all kinds of forces that are beyond his control, being thrown about, buffeted about by all kinds of forces that are beyond my control. So this is how I look at this world. I am apurnaha. I'm wandering about in this world. Immense world under control of forces that that are way beyond my control. So this limited jiva, this apurnaha I is born, and this apurnaha I pursues various things, and then it dies. And then there is travel from one janma to another. There is travel from one lokaha to another lokaha. So there is this never-ending cycle of birth and death, where I am helplessly buffeted around because I am in control of my karmas. I am in clutch of all these karmas. I have no control over what the next janma is going to be. It's all determined by karma. Punarapi jananam, punarapi maranam, punarapi janani jఠare. So this kind of a setup where I'm wandering about, the apurnaha I is wandering about in this immense world, this is the samsara. Raga dveshadi sankulaha. And it is infested. Sankulaha means infested or full of, riddled with ragas and dveshas, likes and dislikes. So I see this world with the goggles of my ragas and dveshas. I see a very subjective world. I say that I like this, I don't like this. And I see myself as being apurnaha, and the only way to gain purnatvam is to pursue the objects of my likes. So I run towards the objects of my likes, and I run away from the objects of my dislikes. So pravrittihi and nivrittihi. Pravrittihi is running towards the objects of my likes. Nivrittihi is running away from the objects of my dislike. And I try to arrange the world in accordance with my likes and dislikes in order to gain some purnatva. So raga, dvesha, adi. Adi refers to kamaha, krodhaha, lobhaha, moha, etc. His desire to become purnaha, kamaha. When my desire is obstructed, there is krodha, anger. And when my desire is fulfilled, it becomes lobha, greed. And all of these raga dveshas cause a delusion in the priorities of life. There is moha. So, raga dveshadi sankulaha samsaraha. There is this samsara in which I am. I find myself in this world, in such a world, riddled with ragas and dveshas, raga, dvesha, kama, krodha, lobha, moha. Bhagavad says the entire thing is swapna tulyaha hi. It is very similar to my dream. The samsara constituting this limited individual struggling for purnatvam in this immense world under control of forces on which I have no control. There is birth, death, suffering, pain, struggle. This entire thing is like a dream. It is an appearance. It appears to be real. Really speaking, it is mithya. It is not satyam. So whenever something is compared to another thing. The samsara is compared to the dream. There should be some similarity between the two. What is the similarity? The similarity is that both are mithya. The dream is mithya, so is the samsara. So everything that I see in the dream, it is negated when I wake up. For example, I am stranded in a desert. Let's say I'm stranded in a desert and I'm very thirsty. There's the sun, blazing heat of the sun is there. That's making me feel very thirsty and I've run out of water. And I'm trying to quench my thirst somehow, and in the distance I see a pond. I run towards the pond. And when I reach the pond, I see that that was a mirage. There's only sand there. There's no pond. Then I look around. I see another pond. I run towards that. When I reach that, I see that that is incapable of quenching my thirst because it's a mirage. I see another pond, another pond. I'm continually running towards these ponds. They turn out to be mirages incapable of quenching my thirst. And then suddenly I see this person coming on a camel. And he gets down, he says, I have some water, let me give you the water. He takes some water first and he sprinkles the water on my face. The moment this cool water touches my face, I wake up. The whole thing was a dream. The whole thing got negated, lock, stock, and barrel. And I wake up. So when I wake up, I realize that I am the waker. I had mistaken myself to be this puny person wandering about in this immense desert with all these mirages that could have never quenched my thirst. So upon waking up, I understand that I, the waker, am the Satyam, the entire dream world is Mithya. So this is the similarity. So Bhagavad Pada says here, Swakale Satyavad Bhati Prabodhe Satya Sat Bhave. Why is the dream said to be Mithya? So let us come to the dream first. Why is the dream said to be Mithya? Because Swakale Satyavad Bhati Prabodhe Sati Asat Bhave. So Swakale Satyavat Bhati. During the dream, Satyavat Bhati, it appears to be like Sat. Satyavat means it is not Sat, it appears to be like Sat. And Bhati means it is experienced. It is experienced like Sat. So the fact that it is experienced means that it is not asat. A horn's hair or the son of a barren woman are never experienced. The dream is experienced. Bhati, so it is not asat. But it is not sat either, but satyavat bhati. So Bhagavad Pada is giving the definition of mithya here. Swakale satyavat bhati. Prabodhe sati asat bhave. But when I wake up, prabodhe sati. So in Sanskritam, when this sati comes, the word sati comes, it's called sati saptami. There's a saptami vibhakti. This is the seventh case of the word sat. So that means this being the case. Prabodhe is also in saptami. Prabodhe sati. Once I have woken up, prabodhe sati, asat bhave. And I understand that this is not sat, but it is mithya. So here the word asat is strictly not used in the sense of asat as we discussed it, not used in the sense of non-existent. But here asat is taken to be mithya. So as long as I don't know that I am the waker who is the satyam, then the mithya is mistaken to be the Satya. So I take myself to be this puny creature wandering about in this desert in the blazing sun. All of that is taken to be the reality. And the dream individual will swear that it is all real. He doesn't even doubt that it is not real. For the dreamer, the dream is not a dream in dream. It's only upon waking up he knows it as a dream. When he is dreaming, he sees it as Satyam. Prabodhe sati. Prabodhe sati asat bhavet. As long as he has not woken up, it very much appears like Satyam. Satyavat bhati. Swakale. Swakale means ajnana kale. During the time of ignorance, as long as I have not understood what is Satyam, then the Mithya takes over as Satyam. So this is the dream. Why the dream is mithya? Because it appears to be real as long as I am not known I am the waker. Swakale satyavad bhati prabodhe sati asat bhave. But then how is the samsara mithya? So we say that Swakale satyavad bhati. Here too, Swakale satyavad bhati. As long as one doesn't know what is real in this world, one will mistake the mithya to be the satya. And what is real here is Brahman and Brahman alone. As long as one has not understood Brahman, as long as one has not known Brahman, this Mithya world will be mistaken to be Satya. Swakale Satyavat bhati. So this samsaraha, in which this limited individual, this apurnaha I, is wandering around from one mirage to another. Wandering around, seeing water that will quench my thirst. What is the equivalent of the water that will quench my thirst? My thirst is this thirst of apurnatvam. I want to quench it. I want to become purnaha. But then I'm wandering about in this world from one oasis to another. These pursuits of artha, kamaha, and dharma are like these oasis ponds that I see in this desert. Is incapable of quenching my thirst of apurnatvam. I am running after one pond after another pond. One pond after another, I am running around. Running after the pursuits of artha, kama, and dharma, but they can never quench my thirst of apurnatvam. So swakale, satyavad bhati, all this appears to be very real. And I'm seriously pursuing all these pursuits because that is the only reality that I see. This is the only way I see of gaining purnat. Prabodhe sati asat bhave. But when Brahma Jnanam dawns, when I understand, when I know Brahman as Satya, then the entire world is reduced to Mithya. At that point, I know that this is not real. So the reality that I give to the separate world and to the Apurna I, it is born out of my ignorance of Brahman. So if we look at the dream and the samsara, there is another way we can compare this. So if we see how this dream comes about, there are 4 stages involved that Swamiji calls PEFS. Project, enter, forget, and suffer. PEFS. So I am really the waker. The waker has gone to sleep, deep sleep. So in deep sleep, I have forgotten the waker. There is waker ajnanam. But Ajnanam cannot keep quiet. Ajnanam projects. So P, the first step comes about projects. It projects this dream. It has concealed the waker and it has projected this dream. Even at this point, if I know that this entire dream is a false dream, if I know it is false, there is no problem. But this Ajnanam hides the falsity of the dream also and transfers the reality of the waker who is lending existence to the dream. The existence of the waker is transferred to the dream. So project. So this dream is projected. And now he enters this dream as this puny creature in the dream. And there is this forgetfulness of the waker. So projecting the dream, entering the dream. But after having entered the dream, if I knew that this was a dream, also wonderful. I could have enjoyed the dream like I enjoy a movie. I turn on the movie. It may be a happy movie, a sad movie, even a horror movie. There are people who enjoy horror movies because they know it's a movie. If this dream was known as a false dream, I could have enjoyed the dream like I enjoy a movie. But then I forget the reality that I am the waker. I forget that the waker is the reality of this whole thing. This whole thing is false. I forget that. Project, enter, forget. And then I suffer because what happens? I become this puny creature in this separate world. And then I suffer as a result. But then what happens after this project, enter, forget, suffer? I finally wake up. Throughout this process, even when I'm projecting, entering, forgetting, and suffering, as this dream individual, the waker never suffers. Why? Because the waker is Satyam. Satyam is never affected by the Mithya, so the waker never suffers. Now, when I wake up, I see that the waker is the reality and I am the waker, and therefore the suffering comes to an end. I see that I, the waker, am the Satyam who is unaffected by this entire Mithya. So, similarly, here too, if we take this samsara, really speaking, I am Brahman. I am Brahman. But the Ajnanam is there. The Ajnanam conceals the reality of Brahman. The Ajnanam projects this false world. So in this Ajnanam, the equivalent of Ajnanam in this case is the Maya Shakti. So Brahman with its Maya Shakti projects this false world. Then Maya conceals the falsity of the world and transfers the reality of Brahman, the existence that really belongs to Brahman is transferred to the world. So this projection of the world happens. And then Brahman alone enters this world as this Jiva, this puny Apurna creature, who sees himself as being Apurna, nothing but Brahman alone. So Brahman has entered this creation. Project, enter. But then there is this forgetting. Because of the Ajnanam, one forgets that I am Brahman. Jiva doesn't know that I am Brahman, and then this Jiva suffers. Project, enter, forget, and suffer. He sees himself as this puny creature wandering about in this separate world. And throughout this, Brahman never suffers because Brahman is Satyam. Satyam is utterly unaffected by this entire Mithya. So, Prabodhe Sati, what happens when the Jiva wakes up, when this Jiva gains Brahma Jnanam, he understands that I am Brahman, that is the Satya. And that brings an end to this entire suffering. Therefore, exactly like his dream appears to be real in the dream. Prabodhe sati asat bhavet. Once one wakes up, one understands that this whole thing was mithya. Similarly, in this world also, the jiva is struggling, wandering about in this world, chasing mirages, for quenching this thirst of apurnatvam. But upon waking up, he understands that I am Brahman, and this entire world is incapable of affecting me. We will read the next verse also. We have almost covered the contents of the next verse, so there is not much to say with regards to the next verse. Tavat satyam jagat bhati
तावत् सत्यं जगद्भाति
shuktikara jatan yatha
शुक्तिकारजतं यथा
yavan jnayate brahma
यावन्न ज्ञायते ब्रह्मा
sarvadhisthanamadvayam.
सर्वाधिष्ठानमद्वयम्.
So, tavat satyam jagat bhati yavan jnayate brahma. So as long as this satyam adhishthanam, as long as this satyam brahma is not known, yavat tavat satyam jagat bhati, tavat jagat satyam bhati. So this jagat appears to be satyam. This mithya jagat appears to be satyam. It hijacks the satyatvam of Brahma. How long does this happen? यावन् न ज्ञायते ब्रह्म, यावत् Brahman na jnayate. As long as Brahman is not known, as long as Satyam Brahma is not known, then Mithya projected Jagat is mistaken to be Satyam. Sarva adhishthanam atvayam. What kind of Brahma it is? The Sarva adhishthanam atvayam. This Brahma is the adhishthanam of this entire Jagat. And when we say Brahman is the adhisthana of this Jagat, really it's saying that I as Brahman, am the adhishthanam of this entire Jagat. I am the supporter of this entire world as Brahman. I am not supported by this world, as most people think. I am this puny creature in this separate world. I depend upon this world for my existence. That is entirely false. I am the one who is the supporter of this world. It is not the other way around. In dream, I see myself as a puny creature wandering about in this dream world. If somebody were to come and tell me in the dream that you are not dependent upon this dream world, this entire dream world is dependent upon you, I would not listen to that person. The dream guru, it comes and tells me, you are the supporter of this world. I would find it very hard to believe, very hard to accept. But upon waking up, I see that this entire dream world is in me. The dream world was in me. I alone really am. This dream world was just an appearance in me. Similarly, I alone am the adhishthanam of this entire world, including time and space. I am not in time and space, but time and space are in me. Sarvadhishthanam means adhishthanam of time and space also. So I am not in time, I am not in space. But time is in me, is in me. Therefore, I am eternal, since I am not affected by the coming and going of time also. And I am all pervading, because the entire space is in me. So I am this all pervading eternal Brahman that is the supporter of this entire Jagat. And how many such eyes are there? Advayam, Advaitam. I alone am. I belong to a higher order of reality. I alone exist independently as Brahman. I alone exist. and the entire world is in me. I am the supporter of this world. I belong to a higher order of reality. This world is in a lower order of reality. All else is mithya. All else depends upon me for my existence. And he gives this example, Shuktika Rajatam Yatha. So as long as the shell is not known, what I see there is a silver. So if you look at a shell, the shell has a smooth side to it. If the shell is lying on a beach, then on a summer afternoon, if somebody is walking on the beach, then he sees something shiny. The sunlight is reflected on the shell. And then he mistakes that to be silver and he runs towards it. So there is superimposition upon the silver on the shell. There is shell ignorance. Due to shell ignorance, there is projection of the silver and transference of the reality of the shell to the silver. So this person runs towards it thinking that it is silver. Shuktika rajatam yatha. So Shuktikayam rajatam. On the shell, the silver appears. The adhyasa of silver appears. So how long does the silver, the projection of the silver last? As long as one has not understood the shell. So similarly, tavat satyam jagat bhati shuktika rajatam yatha. As long as one has not understood the adhishthanam, and the mithya is taken to be the satyam. So similarly, as long as one has not known that I am Brahman, this projection of the world is taken to be real. So I am not a puny creature in this world. The entire world is a mithya appearance and is supported by me. And as Satyam Brahma, I am unaffected by this mithya jagat. One has to come to this understanding. That is when this world becomes dismissed as mithya. Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate Om Shanti 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 Hari Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha Hari Om